Kung Fu Karate Chop action! She can break anything with the tiny
bombs.
Nothing can resist her! Cars, trees, bricks, houses, her own face! It's the Annihilator!
I'm sorry, that came to mind and I couldn't resist making that. Anyways, today we're talking about the weapons of our favorite Irish grenadier, Annihilator. Here's the rules I'll be following. I want to put a little more emphasis on the personal experience one, because it's mostly based on how I feel about them. It wouldn't be a typical opinions video without opinions, right? Basically, what you may feel about a weapon may not be the same as how I feel about it. You may like it, I may not. It's just how things are. Anyways, let's just get started, shall we? Grenade launcher. This is easily one of the best primaries without a doubt. It's got high damage, firing speed, and AoE that makes it easy to take out both players and buildings. Though the latter is a little bit more difficult because where you aim matters ever since they made it so that anything behind the building doesn't take damage from AoE. Regardless, it's still pretty useful for an aggressive player that just wants to blow up everything, so it's going in excellent. Acid Trader. Previously called the Ultimatum, this is a more supportive kind of weapon that applies lemonade to the target and nearby enemies on a direct hit. While there is a pretty big damage penalty, it only applies to players and not buildings. It's a pretty cool idea for a launcher, and I honestly think it'd be pretty funny if it had the ability to extinguish teammates if you shoot them with it like the sour shots. It's great. M1 Garandier. This is the Iron Bomber, and quite an odd weapon to say the least when it comes to translation. They made it so it doesn't deal splash damage on direct hits, like at all. Which is strange considering that's kind of the whole point of grenade launchers. The bombs don't roll and blow up other nearby bombs you fire, so you can just shoot them on the floor. But at that point you're better off just using stickies. Though it does make it easier to blast jump with it if you want. It's a bit odd, but it still does pretty good damage, so it'll go in good. Iron Force. This is the lock and load, and my personal favorite for the sole purpose of
property damage!
This can two-shot all buildings, making quick work of sentries that are causing a bit of trouble for the team. It was also given the same benefit as a direct hit, where you can mini-crit enemies who are airborne from explosions, which is pretty satisfying when you pull it off. I think what I like most about it is that instead of the pills breaking on contact with a surface, they still explode, but the blast radius is reduced by half, which allows you to blast jump with it as if you had a rocket launcher, which I used a lot with Hybrid Knight to get around really quickly or just to surprise attack unaware enemies. I love this thing. Excellent. Blunderbrass. This is a loose cannon and pretty much functions the exact same way, except it has some personal flares with it. Instead of a target getting donked, they get blundered, and it even has its own unique sound for it too. Outside of that, I find this to be pretty funny just to spam into a nest, especially when a mechanic is actively building there. It may not deal as much damage right away, but I just really like all the hit sounds that go off with the occasional blunder. I don't really use this too much nowadays, but even then, this is great. Parabomber. This is the base jumper, but Annie doesn't exactly get as much benefit with it as Trooper does. The only real thing you can do with it is carpet bombing. You're pretty much forced to use stickies to get any sort of offensive value with it, and because of that, it's just going in okay. Gunboats. Like with the Parabomber, you're pretty much forced to use stickies, but I find this to be a lot better since it also reduces damage taken from blast jumping and fall damage, which makes it easier to go across the map and, I don't know, spawn camp the enemy team, especially if it's something like Harvest. It's good. Squire Boots. These are Alibaba's wee booties, and are the main factor between a normal Annihilator and an Annie Knight. You don't even have to go Annie Knight, as the extra health and speed you get just from wearing them allows you to be a sticky tank. A little off topic, but when's someone gonna make a remodel of these, cause these are just cowboy boots. Something you'd more often see on Mechanic or Marksman, not Annihilator. Anyways, while sacrificing your grenade launcher can be costly at times, I still think these are great. Galway Greaves. these are kind of underrated if you ask me. They're kind of like Annie's version of the man treads that allow you to fly further when sticky jumping, take less fall damage, and deal triple the stomp damage. But the big thing that stands out the most about these is the heavy knockback reduction you have, which makes them pretty reliable for fighting arsonists that tend to air blast Annie Knights out of range. Outside of that, they don't have too much of a use, but they're still pretty good overall. Sticky Bomb Launcher. There are two kinds of people that use this, the Trapper and the Spammer. The Trapper uses it for its intended purpose and creates area denial that results in instant death. The Spammer just says screw waiting and goes in shooting. I'm a mix of both and really just depends on what I'm doing. If I'm defending and I want to watch a certain route, then I set up traps. If there's a lot of people on the point or I've been Ubered or crits, then I'm going and spamming. There's no doubt about it, this is one of, if not the best stock secondary weapon. Excellent. Irish Guard. This is the Scottish resistance and benefits well with trappers given its ability to manually detonate stickies you're looking at, which makes it great for watching multiple routes, especially given the increased amount of active stickies you can have out. However, most of the time I see this, it's just them spamming on the last point of payload. It's effective, but it just ain't right. Still great though. Quickie Bomb Launcher. This is the best one for combos with its lowered arm time, which allows you to shoot a pipe and follow up with this. The extremely fast charge time makes it pretty reliable for sticky sniping and just dealing some poke damage at a pretty far range. It can still be used for trapping, even with its lowered clip size. Not so much for spamming though, so it'll go in great. Sticky Jumper. While not having a powerful weapon on you is a pretty big cost, the mobility you could get from this is ridiculous. You can easily go from one side of the map to the other in seconds while only worrying about fall damage, which makes it pretty good for flanking and just spawn camping since you still have access to a grenade launcher. It's great. Charge and Targe. Surprisingly, I don't see this very often considering the high resistances to both blast and fire damage, which makes it reliable for both hybrid and full knights. Being able to survive longer from more annoying sources of damage is quite a nice thing to have, especially considering the charge itself allows you to close the gap or remove debuffs on you. It's excellent. Gladiator's Guard. This is the splendid screen and one of the more offensive shields, since it recharges faster and deals more shield bash damage. It's more beneficial to run a full knight with this since you can charge more often and it doesn't have any resistances. This is probably the shield I see the least, probably because people just use the other ones more, but it's still pretty good overall. Guide Turner. Even with the recent nerf it got that removed the resistances it had, it's still the most common shield for the sole purpose of complete control when charging, which makes it perfect for trimping and easily closing the gap on someone, especially if they go around the sharp corner. When I first figured out how to trimp, it felt so satisfying, and I just went out of my way to find other spots I can trimp off of whenever I'm playing Annie. It's a lot of fun, and it's excellent. Bloody Blossom. Let's be real, nobody here that uses this uses it for the bleed damage on shield bash. It's mainly only used for bullet damage resistance, which doesn't really change any thresholds all that much. But it does allow you to survive a bit longer if you walk around the corner into a sentry or a revved up brute. It's good. Raging Bull. This is the only shield in TC2 that allows your melee to crit, as it was removed on all other shields. Though you can't turn when charging, but even then it's quite nice if you can line it up just right. It's also just pretty funny to do this when airborne, so this is going in great. Broken Sword. A stock melee that doesn't have any stats on it may not seem like much, but for Annie, it's one of his best options considering that almost all of his other melees have a slower deploy and holster speed. So if you don't want to have to deal with that, you can just use stock. It may not have as much range, but it's a lot more reliable in a pinch. It's excellent. Battle Axe. This is the Scotsman's Skull Cutter. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Even though random crits don't exist here, pairing this with the Raging Bull and being able to one-shot every class except the Brute is pretty powerful. Even without crits, you can two-shot Doctors, but the slower move speed you get when deployed can be hefty at times, especially when trying to close the gap without a shield charge. I think it's great. Black Death. This is the Islander, but unfortunately, Annie doesn't have any flaming eye effects when he gains heads. Or any effects for that matter. So you can't even tell how many heads an Annie has until you're dead and see their health. I think it'd be a cool idea for the sword itself to have glowing bars on the blade showing how many heads they have, up to the max boost effects of 3. And some flames that increase in size around the sword as well could be nice. So you have some idea of how many heads they have. This is easily one of the best swords for Annie Knight, so it'll go in excellent. Elegant Blade. This is the Claymore, but the increased shield charge time is passive, meaning you don't need to have the sword out to get it, which makes it really good for getting around. You also have 15 less health instead of just taking 15% more damage, so it's pretty good for hybrid or if you just like to trimp a lot. It's great. Furious Flax. This is the Pain Train with the Annie Sword perks, so increased range but slower deploy and holster speed. Annie gets a lot more use out of the speed boost this gives in Troopers solely because of Annie Knight. Paired with the boots, you'll be running around at nearly the same speed as a Black Death Knight with 3 heads. If the bullet damage vulnerability bothers you, then you can just equip the Bloody Blossom to negate it, and take slightly less damage than normal. It's excellent. Golf Club. Here we have a very interesting case when it comes to translation from TF2 to TC2. At first glance, you'd think this is just a Nessie's 9 iron, which is a reskin of the Islander, but here it's just its own thing. It acts like a base for Annie swords, as it just has the normal sword pros and cons and nothing else. I guess if you just want a melee with increased range but no other added downsides, you'd use this, but why would you when you have so many other options? I guess it's still pretty reliable as the base, so it'll go in okay. Katana. If you've seen my very first typical opinions video on the katana, then you know how I feel about Annies that use this. Nice to see less of them ever since the health gain got nerfed for him, but that doesn't mean it's useless. Annie Knight itself can still be pretty dangerous in the right hands, and personally I like pairing this with the Raging Bull mainly because of the idea of just your typical anime scene where a guy gets taken out in a single strike. It's great. Shock and Awe. This is the Ullapool Caber, but a lot better because of the fact it can recharge. I only use this for one reason only, and that's Caber Knight, paired with the Raging Bull. I cannot get enough of doing this, especially if I charge headfirst straight into a crowd. It's so funny. And also you can use this as an explosive market gardener because it mini crits when you're airborne, but we're not here for that. Either way, it's going in great. Spartan Savior. This is the Persian Persuader and the main sword that's best used in a full knight set. Don't worry, you still have all your reserve ammo, but you do reload your primary a lot slower. Originally, this wasn't even noticeable back then, so I used this a lot when I went hybrid, but now it's really noticeable, so I don't use it as much. It's still reliable for chaining kills with the extra charge you get from ammo packs and dealing damage, so I'll put it in good. And that's all of them. A few outliers, but overall a lot of great stuff for Annie. Now comes the question, what do you think of Annihilator's weapons? Should they be higher or lower? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, like and sub if you enjoyed this. See ya!